Well, here we are. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, and I mentioned Friday that I wanted to go back and do a sort of a separate quick look at the Caza Sikes sale that took place about a week ago. Did very well. Here it is, and we'll go through some of the results. I won't cover the whole sale. There were a lot of things in here, but it was a very interesting sale because it's the kind of porcelain and the type of objects that you're likely to encounter out and around, much more so than imperial wares and the fancy things that we read about in the papers and see going off at large auction houses. These are sort of more the bread and butter collectible items that are out there. They're absolutely wonderful, and they can still be bought for relatively modest amounts of money. And we'll go through some of them. And if you want to see the wholesale, go over there. There's 228 lots. The sale was held on the 28th of January, just a few days ago. But it's a very nice. We'll give it a sort of a nice overview of what was going on and how the things did. And we'll start with this, for example. This was a nice Hongxi period plate with the peacock pattern in the middle. It's a fairly well-known type. These were made around 1500. This plate measures about 12 inches in diameter. It's very nicely done. What I found sort of interesting is that the outer border decoration is a little sort of like blurrier or almost out of focus, but the center decoration was very crisp and clean. Nicely done. The plate was in good condition, and it did fine. It brought $2,400 plus the buyer's premium, which is around 30. Brings it up to about $3,100, $3,200, something like that. Now, keep in mind, when you look at their estimates, they gave very low estimates, and they were aware of it. It's really just the auction house's way of saying, nothing here is reserved, we're all going to sell it all, and it's a very healthy way to sell things. Because you end up getting real serious people that are real collectors and interested, and they know what the stuff is worth. This just tells them that there are no big reserves. There's nothing really much that's going to be an obstacle to your purchases as far as minimum prices go. It's just it's a message, I guess, is what it really is. And we've talked about it before. Auction estimates often don't mean much. They're only accurate about 25-30% of the time. All right, and then over to this very nice russet streak Jade Jian hairs for bowl. It's a very nice example, actually. The patterning on it was good. There was not a lot of wear to the base glaze here on the interior. It looked to be in very nice condition all the way around. The iron spots on it were well done. Here's the exterior of it. The camera had a little bit of distortion, I noticed. In the lens, these modern cameras, they are not meant to be shooting up close to things because they often have built-in lenses that are slightly convex, and they distort things. As a tip, if you're using one of these cameras, back up away on a tripod and use the zoom as much as you can to pull the picture in. If you use a zoom lens on this, you don't get the distortion. If you shoot the camera up close to it, you get the distortion. But if you back away from it and use the zoom, get it focused, you'll get a much better picture. And this was the problem that they had with this bowl. That's why it looks almost like it's swollen, and that's not really the shape. Maybe they have a better shot. There it is. That's a more even shot of it. So it's not distorted and high on one side. This was a nice bowl. And in the end, it did fine. It brought $2,500 plus the premium, so that comes in at about what, $3,200, $3,300, something like that. This is a good bowl. It was a nice one. Well done, very well done. And then hopping along over to this was the Cizhou ware decorated vase. We previewed this before the sale. I just thought it was a nice example, and of course the estimate was only $300 to $500. And in the end, it did fine. It brought just about exactly what they bring everywhere else. When they come up for sale, I think we said 4,000 to 6,000 or 3,000 to 5,000, somewhere in that range, and it went for 5,500 plus the premium, so it went a little bit over with the premium. When it came in at around $7,000, but it was a nice example. Good creamy white glaze on it. The black lines of the clouds and so forth were very well outlined, nice and crisp, nice and clean. And there was a slight tilt to the vase, but that's sort of normal. But it's also, again, due to that slight distortion you get with some of these contemporary cameras, unless you go to a lens that flattens it out considerably. But this was a nice looking pot. I think this was a wise buy for somebody. I thought it was a very nice example. And if you put one of these in Google Lens, you'll find other examples and see that the price was right in line, pretty much. And then this, the Qingbai cup and stand. We had talked about this on the Patreon video we did on this sale a week ago, and I I wasn't totally convinced the stand went with the cup, but it was complementary to the cup. The potting of the rim was the same. The color seems slightly, very slightly different. Now it may just be the lighting. I'm not completely sure, but the bowl is a little bluer than the under tray. So the under tray looks a little bit green. To my eye, anyway. There you see it a little bit more, but they were good enough in comparison to one another to fit together. The potting quality was about the same. The rim, you'll notice on the stand, as well as the cup itself, are nice and thin, well done. The other thing is that the cup had more of a shaping to the rim, but it was a beautifully done cup. I thought the cup was wonderful. Lots of blue pooled in the glaze underneath the base here. It's an absolutely wonderful sort of aqua blue color. Very, very attractive. This was a nice thing. And in the end, it brought $4,250 plus premium, so around $5,600 roughly, somewhere in there. Nice looking piece of porcelain, though. And Qingbai wares, I think right now, are a relative bargain for what they are when you consider that they're mostly, all 12th and, Sung to early Yuan dynasty. And then there was the pair of vases on stands. I've talked about these before. I just thought they were wonderful, and to have a pair in good condition. There was a minor, it looks like minor sort of firing flaw up here in this little black area, but the rest of them were very good, and the color was quite good, and the underglaze decoration was quite good. And I like these big flange handles on the side here, and then the sort of chain going down, the ring going down over the sides. I thought that was a very attractive effect. So forth. You have a line here. Now that line is from the firing. That's not damage or a break or anything. That's a kind of line you see on Qingbai when they gap a little bit during the firing process, and then they cool, and it causes those little lines to form in the glaze sometimes. But nice looking thing. Again, about 50. 3 times about $5,700 all said and done. Nice looking pair, and these were good size. These were decent size. They were 6 3/4 inches tall. Very attractive though. And then there was this lot of Qingbai. Now these were nice. These are all small pieces. These are very small. I think the tallest piece of this lot is 2 inches tall. But you have an incense holder. You've got this nice melon-formed bird feeder cup. And bird feeder cups from the in Qingbai are pretty rare. That's a fairly rare thing. We've seen how much the Qingans bird feeders bring. Well, here it looks like I think this is also a bird feeder. And then you have this joss-stick holder here with the elephant inside the dish. I thought that's a pretty rare thing. And I love the little melon-formed pot off to the side. And then you have this washer, like a beehive-formed washer, a brush washer. Get over to that in a minute. There it is. Very nicely done with flower patterns and then this ribbing going down over it. It would be a little better if the color was a little bluer. It's a little bit gray here, but it's still an awfully nice example. And the whole lot went for $1,700. That was a nice lot for someone. That was a really nice lot for somebody. You got 6 pieces coming in at around, that works out with the premium at about little over $300 a piece. Very reasonable purchases. And somebody had asked me. They said these cups here, the bird feeders, did they have covers or anything? Because they wondered if maybe they were missing their lids. No, they didn't. That's how they were made. And the feeders these days, even Qing Dynasty feeders, bring $300, $400, $500 a piece. And I think you got a couple of them there. So that was a good buy. And then this was sort of the main event of the sale, I guess. It's a Yuan to early Ming or late Yuan dynasty dragon celadon. This is a pretty rare type, and they've turned up in the past. We've seen them at the big auction houses. You see them over in Europe, and they typically sell. In the past, they've sold for as much as $40,000, $50,000 back. This was back in 2010, 11, 12, and 13. And since then, they've become a little more sensible. This one came in at about $26,000, which I think was a perfectly good price for it in today's market. It was a very strikingly cast with a dragon in the middle. This was a popular pattern, like I said, during the late Yuan, early Ming Dynasty. And they did these very crisply drawn, rather ferocious looking dragons. And then you have this nice and nice decoration. What held the price a little bit back was some of this discoloration on the outer edge here from the kiln. during the firing process. You look at celadons, the color is essential. The color is one of the most important elements. It would be the perfect color is, of course, the little bit lighter green they call Canuta green. It's a slight bit of a little, almost of a bluish tinge to it. It's a very, very pretty color. This is a fairly dark green, but the casting of the dragon is outstanding, and the interior rim decoration is very good. But it did have a slight bit of discoloration from the firing over there, so I think it held the price down by maybe 10 or 15,000. Still did very well, $27,000. Beautiful piece of porcelain, nice example if you're a Celadon buyer. And then over to this, the Celadon bowl. This was that big bowl. I thought this bowl was wonderful because it's so big. This bowl is 20. How big is it? Well, not centimeters. I won't do it in centimeters. I was going to say 29 centimeters. It's 30 centimeters, 12 inches in diameter. And you don't often see Celadon bowls with incised decoration from this period with this kind of carving. This looks to be probably a 14th century bowl, is just a guess based on the decoration and how it's done. Could even be even a little bit earlier. But wonderful porcelain. Beautiful thing all the way around in large. And this is a very big one. And there you have this crosshatch pattern that you see, crisscross pattern you see on Ming Longquan Celadon chargers. This is often the interior, used as interior decoration, but you have this very exuberant wave pattern or cloud pattern going around on the interior, very strongly drawn. I thought that was a wonderful bowl. And I don't think the price was crazy, about $6,500, including the premium. Perfectly reasonable for a big Ming Celadon bowl. And then the elephant, the Annamese elephant. We talked about this quite a bit. I just thought it was very striking and interesting. And it was fairly good size. It was 9 inches long. The underglazed blue on it was beautifully done. It looks to be probably a 16th century or so example. I don't know if they dated it or not. They called it 15th century. Okay. It's been an institution. It's been cataloged. Could be 15th century, but 15th or 16th. Very nicely done and rare. These are pretty rare. And we talked about that before the sale because you just don't see them very often in this form. And this well done also. It's beautifully done. And it's got these wonderful metal trunk been added to it. Now, the trunk may have been porcelain originally, or it may have been metal from the beginning because it also has a metal cap on it. Anyway, this is a nice looking ewer. It went for, well, with the buyer's premium, it came in at a little over $10,000, $10,500, $11,000. Spectacularly nice example though, and very rare type. And then you had these. You've got a couple of these, probably Hongqi to slightly later Ming blue and white charges. You get the two of them. They both measured 13 inches in diameter, so they were big. $2,200 plus the premium, about $2,800, $2,900, or about $1,400 a piece. That's right in the ballpark. That's typically what they sell for. But these were nice, and you get two shipped to you. You save a bit on the shipping. And then over to this, the blue and white bowl with the galloping horse on it. This is a fairly famous pattern, the galloping horse among the clouds. And we've seen it on other porcelains from the Ming Dynasty. You even see it on some Qing examples. They brought it back. You'll see it occasionally. But this was a nice one. And, not crazy price, $700 plus the premium, about $9,200, $920 rather. But the cobalt color was very pleasing on this. Had a nice dark cobalt, and it was loosely drawn. It's not a highly precise Ming example, but it's a very nice example. Very nice, has good white clay, and I liked it. I thought it was overall quite a nice thing. There it is. There's the interior, and it's got this the wave pattern in the center, the crashing wave on the rocks, and $900. A beautiful bowl, measured 6 inches in diameter, which is pretty much the most Ming bowls that you come to are between 5 and 7.5 inches in diameter. That's sort of the running size. If you see something bigger than that, like the big Yuan Li piece that just went through Stair Gallery, those are very rare. Especially one that was perfect. That one happened to be perfect, so it brought, I think, about $11,000. But most Ming bowls are done in this pattern, in this manner. As far as size goes and the shape, there's a few variations on the shape, but that's sort of the basic shape of many of them. And then there was this. There were a couple of this pattern bowl in the sale. I liked this a lot. I thought that these were quite nice. There were two of them in the sale, very similar in pattern, but very loosely, but quickly. And there's a certain fineness to the decoration on this. And I like the way they twisted the lip of the bowl out just a little bit, just inverted it slightly. And like so many Ming bowls, it's a little bit irregular across the top. If you put a ruler on here, you'd see some gaps because that's how they did them. They made these bowls quickly. And if you've seen the videos out there on YouTube, how they make bowls today, you'll see whole tabletops made of these. And the potter working on what they call a hump, which is a giant hunk of clay. And they pull a bowl off the top, cut it, put it on the tray, pull another bowl off. They don't put one lump of kaolin and clay down to make one bowl typically. When they do them, this type of bowl, they would have a giant mountain of clay, get the thing rounded, get it ready, and then work it and pull off multiple bowls all off of one pile of clay. And they referred to it as a hump. Any rate, this was a nice one. It ended up going for $1,200 plus premium, or around $1,400 and so forth. And this one was a little bit finer, I guess, and it brought a little more money. It's almost identical to the last one. Very, very similar pattern, similar decoration. Again, similar warpage. There's the warp. You got a dip here in the middle. That's typical. But nicely done. Good color, finely painted, all the way around. You do see some irregularity in the shape, that's normal. But I thought the interiors were very delicately done. There's a certain delicacy to how this was done that I think was really quite charming. These very fine single lines and so forth, very attractive. And this one brought $1,600 plus the premium, or what's that work out to? About $1,900. And I wouldn't be surprised if the same person bought both of them, because they would display pretty well as a pair. This one is 6 inches in diameter. And this one is also 5 3/4 inches in diameter. So if they were on a shelf together, they'd read visually as being pretty much a pair. And then this was in the sale also. There wasn't a lot of silk on sale. There were a few rank badges, and they weren't great rank badges, but they were perfectly fine. But this was a pretty good roundel with interesting coloring. Probably early 19th century. I don't know if they dated it. They're calling it 18th or 19th century. I'd be more inclined to think it was probably late Caijing or Daguan period, I guess, somewhere in there. It was a little overlit in the photograph. It looks like it's slightly washed out. I suspect in person, see if they have other pictures of it. The colors are a little strong because they side lit it. But I think over here you get a better sense of the color. There's a little more contrast. But at any rate, it did fine. It ended up going for about $3,800 with the premium, roughly somewhere around there. $3,880, I guess, with the buyer's premium. I think it's 28%. So there you go. And then what was I going to talk about this? Oh, there was this. There was a whole group of miniature Cizhou type jars, little jarlets. And this was a nice little lot. You got the bird in here, and you have all these little oil jars. Now, all of these are fairly small, but it's an interesting grouping and would display nicely in a cabinet. They have a very rustic look to them, and different decorations. Some patterns are similar, some are very, very different, but it's an interesting assortment to sort of look over. Let's see, chicken cup. I'm looking for the sizes. 26 in total, so there was more than what was displayed. Some spotted. Well, anyway, they're probably all about 2 inches, 3 inches tall at the most. They're fairly small. Ended up going for $650 plus the premium, so that worked out to roughly 186, 750, a little over $800, I guess, for the lot. That's a good buy. If you get 26 pieces for $800, you're talking about what, $35, $40 for each piece. It's pretty reasonable in today's market. And at any rate, go over there and check out the sale. Run down it. This isn't a long video. I'm not going to go on the way I ramble sometimes. But this is an interesting sale, and I was really happy to see it do well. And he's not an Asian art specialist by any stretch, but he did a good auctioneer can do a good job with a lot. If he pays attention to what the consigners tell him, he gets all the information he can and puts it out there. And here are all the bowls. There were loads of bowls of the sale. You go through, you can see all the different types. And there's some wonderful examples, very collectible, some ewers. You got some Annamese things, more Hongqi wood. earthenwares, more jarlets, lots of little jars and pots and so forth. A couple of ewers, very much in the Ming style. These are Ming provincial ewers and so forth. These aren't the fancy ones that sell for a fortune, but they're very nice. There's nothing wrong with them. So enjoy them for what they are. And that's it. That's it. As I said, there's quite a few bowls. They had a lot of Ming bowls. It's amazing. And down here at the bottom there, you have the silks that were in the sale. And none of them brought a lot of money outside of the roundel. They all brought a few $100s. Some of them, I think, were probably post-imperial era examples. And then there was, the transitional quillin dish. Transitional period. Beautifully done. There's a couple, I believe, in the Butler collection like this. There have been others that have turned up in sales in recent history with the Kirin on it. This had nice color, and in the end, it did just fine. It brought around $4,000 plus the premium, around $5,400 for the plate. And I think it measured about 12 inches in diameter. I'm going to check. 12 and a half inches in diameter. There you go. And that was a nice piece also. So overall, the sale it did great. I think it was 100% sold, obviously, because the estimates were so low. But in the end, as we see again, estimates don't mean a heck of a lot because you've got enough people out there these days that really know what they're looking at, and they don't need to be told what things are worth. They already know. As I said, the estimates just tell them there's no reserve on the things, and that really gets a crowd excited. If you want to get a crowd excited, advertise a sale that transmits to the audience that there's no reserves on the pieces, and you will have a crowd. If you put high estimates on, it triggers a concern about high estimates, and it's just very discouraging. You lose probably 10 or 20% of your potential bidders that way. Get your estimates down, get them low, as low as the customer can bear, because he'll get more money in the end every time. Low estimates do not bring low prices. Low estimates bring high prices. All right. Have a great rest of your week. We'll be back Friday with the other video. If anything else turns up in the meantime, I'll come back. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here if you haven't so far. And see you next time. All right. Bye-bye.